This week, Diplomatic Channel takes on one of the most controversial topics for Nigeria and some Western countries. Welcome, I am Amarachi Ubani. Now, the truth is that the issue of gay marriage has been on for about a decade, but it was not until the 2000s that pressure groups and sympathizers began to demand equal rights with heterosexual couples. The discussions began in Europe, which also laid the first example, with the Kingdom of the Netherlands becoming the first ever to end the exclusion of same-sex couples from marriage in April 2001. While Belgium followed closely behind in June of the same year, then Spain and Canada in 2005. But it was not until May last year when France began to recognize same-sex couples. As for Great Britain, it was not until July 17, 2013, when the Queen granted royal assent to a bill extending the freedom to marry same-sex couples in England. The final approval came when the British House of Commons and the House of Lords voted overwhelmingly in its favour. However, couples will not be able to get married until March 29, 2014. The situation is a little different in the United States, as same-sex marriage is only legal in 17 U.S. states and the District of Columbia. South Africa became the first African country to legalize same-sex marriage in November 2006. And if you look deeper into these countries that have approved same-sex marriage, you will discover the important role played by the lawmakers. So Nigerian lawmakers took a stand on the topic, and President Goodluck Jonathan appended his signature, approving the Same-Sex Marriage Prohibition Act, almost at once incurring the wrath of the international community, or at least those who feel offended by the new act. Their argument is that the government is trampling on the rights of individuals to association and expression. Popular as it may seem, only 16 countries in the world have laws allowing same-sex marriage and domestic partnerships, and most of them are in Europe and in South America. And while Britain is threatening to cut aid to countries that criminalize same-sex marriages, it might be time to ask if this is the direction international diplomacy will be taking in the next few years. Will countries' relations now be based on how well they acknowledge the sexual preferences of their citizens, or will issues like hunger, violence, and corruption continue to take center stage, especially for developing countries such as ours?
Nigeria has always proven itself a team player in the international community, supporting decisions and treaties that help improve relations between countries. The country is at the forefront of most peacekeeping operations in Africa, and at the last UN General Assembly, President Goodluck Jonathan in his address showed that Nigeria was not unconcerned with maintaining peace in other parts of the world as well, urging the Assad government in Syria to find a solution to end a civil war that has lasted up to 3 years now. But when a country's domestic policy becomes the concern of the international community, interests are bound to clash. And that's what happened when President Jonathan finally signed the Same-Sex Marriage Prohibition Act on January 7th. The backlash has been non-stop. The U.S. immediately reacted. Secretary of State John Kerry says that the law dangerously restricts freedom of assembly, association and expression for all Nigerians. The U.S. ambassador to the United Nations characterized the law as a big setback for human rights for all Nigerians. Even the UN Secretary General, Mr. Ban Ki-moon, reacted to the new law.
We must institutionalize our efforts to address discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity. We need public education to change popular attitudes.
The new law introduces a 14-year prison sentence for people who were convicted of entering into a same-sex marriage or civil union.
I don't think they'll change.
Those joined in civil unions outside of the country will not be recognized in the country either. The law also forbids people from running gay clubs, societies, processions or meetings in Nigeria. The punishment for that is 10 years in prison. Reactions within the country have been varied. Many have supported the government's decision, towing the line of religion.
Hearing that the president
sign against it. In fact, it's a kudos. I'm very glad that he could stand his feet and stand against such a taboo. He knows what is good for the citizenry of this country, and that is what he stands for.
Others say they fear for the gay community, which may become a target for flimsy attacks. There's also the fear that law enforcement agencies might misinterpret the law, thereby abusing it. There have been no reactions from government agencies against the claims so far. But it seems the federal government has the support of religious groups in the country which condemn homosexuality. Last week, a Muslim man was sentenced to 20 lashes after a Sharia court convicted him of breaking laws against same-sex activity. But the backlash from outside continues. The Canadian government, on hearing about the new law, cancelled President Jonathan's state visit to the country next month.
Not those of us who are already spent.
The UK says it's disappointed that President Goodluck Jonathan gave his assent to the bill. It says that UK opposes any discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation.
I'm a big believer in marriage. It helps people to commit to each other, and I think that that's why gay people should be able to get married too. And in the end, that's what this is about, saying this is a great institution, don't stop gay people getting married, allow them to do that, and society will be stronger as a result.
So far, Nigeria, Uganda and Zimbabwe are the only countries in Africa where there is some legislation against same-sex marriage. However, Ugandan President Yoweri Museveni recently refused to sign a controversial legislation which will make gay acts punishable by life in prison.
Well, let's get more answers now to some of these questions. We're going now to our guest, Professor Nsongura Ndombana, a professor of international law based in Lagos, and Mr. Chukwuemeka Eze, a legal practitioner also based in Lagos. And there had been a lot of misunderstanding about the act, some of them true, others misconstrued. Most, however, give the impression that government is crossing the line here by trying to determine morality for its citizens. I'm passing the buck now to the judiciary to explain what this new act could mean. Professor, thank you for joining us. Mr. Chukwuemeka Eze, thank you so much for joining us. Well, of course, this act, the Same-Sex Prohibition Act, has raised a lot of dust in Nigeria, and I think people are beginning to misinterpret what it means and what it signifies. But I just wanted to get your opinion on the bill or the act or the law now that it's been signed by the president.
Well, the act is a very short piece of legislation, and it nullifies any sexual union between opposite sexes that may have been contracted outside the country, and probably they want to validate it here. It nullifies it. But it also criminalizes such union that might have been contracted in Nigeria. So it makes it a crime that is punishable by imprisonment up to the 14 years imprisonment. And it also criminalizes any body or persons or organizations that may aid or abet such commission of crime, such union. And that includes any gay association or any clubs, that may be set up for the purpose of propagating such association. So it's a very sweeping law in a way, and it punishes those who are committing those crimes with different ranges of imprisonment, sometimes up to 14 years of imprisonment. But let me add a caveat that sodomy is not a new crime in Nigeria. In the criminal code, actually, it was section 214. Sodomy has already been prohibited, and our criminal code is almost 100 years old. So it has always been there. The only difference in the law is that it has expanded the scope and brought in other persons who may be seen to have abet or aid the commission of or the practices of homosexuality. So sodomy is not a new law in Nigeria. It has always been in existence, and it's covered by section 214 of the criminal code. In fact, the same punishment is 14 years imprisonment under that section. It is called offences against nature or unnatural offences. And along that category of offences are also sex or carnal knowledge of animals. If you have any sex, it's also governed under the criminal code. It's punishable with a term of imprisonment of 14 years. Or you have carnal knowledge against an imbecile. All those is covered under section 214, 215, 216, 217 of the criminal code. So really it's not new in Nigeria. But I think the setting has made it to become a very topical and controversial issue. And the fact that it has also increased the number of the scope of persons who are being caught by the new law.
Ms. Nizer, why is this really, why are people really scared about this law? Because if I'm listening to what Professor Nsongura is saying, it means that we already had something like this in place, maybe because it wasn't enforced or because we haven't had, cases that have been really brought to the media concerning them.
I think it's because of the media reach of the Western world. Whatever they make, they popularize or notorize. If they make it notorious, it becomes so. I think what is happening is a new wave of anti-moral campaign, which they have imported and which even in their area, they are yet to fully implement.
You say the media is influencing the government. Foreign media is influencing their own governments.
I mean foreign media. Foreign media.
Their own governments.
Yes, because there is this powerful clique or cabal that has made the Western world to believe that the way forward is to go gay or accept gay rights. Because I'm surprised that they are just beginning to know the meaning of human rights now. They are just beginning to know it because human rights instruments, most of them are not new. Is it the Universal Declaration of Human Rights that came into force in 1948? Or is it the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights? Or the International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights of 1966? Is it new? And the initial people that came up as gay in America and brought actions for gay rights to be legalized, the courts of America rejected them. The first couple, Jack Baker and James Michael McConnell, the first gay couple, applied as far back as 1971 in America to be united as a couple. It was rejected. So does it mean America didn't know the meaning of human rights in 1971? Up to 1996, September 21, President Bill Clinton signed the Defense of Marriage Act, DOMA. And though he recanted on March 8, 2013, that he regretted signing the Defense of Marriage Act, he recanted on March 8, 2013. And finally, the Supreme Court of the United States of America, by a vote of 5-4 on June 26, 2013, took a position that gay rights, was applicable in the United States. They struck down the Defense of Marriage Act. So I'm trying to, the people spreading this, I'm just, as far as, not early enough as 2004, President George W. Bush said, and I'm quoting that, marriage cannot be severed from its cultural, religious, and natural roots without weakening the good of society. I have just quoted George W. He's an American. So when we are there, when their president said this, so they are just beginning to teach us human rights. So America never understood human rights till 2013 when their Supreme Court took this position. I'm surprised. And before I sign off, not up to half of American states have accepted. In fact, tomorrow, Indianapolis, Justice Committee of the General Assembly of Indianapolis will be trying to take a decision on this matter, whether their own state. As we speak today, there is no federal law in America accepting gay rights beyond the one he said, don't ask, don't tell. The one Obama abrogated in December 2010 in the military. So as we speak today, there is no federal law. So why are they teaching us about human rights on gay?